Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Film Odyssey podcast where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best films ever made. This season, we begin our journey with the AFI Top 100. And this week, we talk about Pulp Fiction. So yeah, Randy, Pulp Fiction. This is the only film we've watched so far that you've seen before?
I believe so. Yeah, it's the only one we've watched so far that I've seen before. Probably like twice beforehand.
Oh, okay, so this is your third viewing?
Yes.
Alright, so where do you want to start? Did it hold up for you? Did you still like it? Do you think it's as good as you remember? Do you think it's better than you remembered?
I think it's better than I remembered.
Really?
Yes, because, I wasn't so thrown off by a certain scene in the basement of a pawn shop.
With a couple of good old boys and Marcellus Wallace's ass?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't so thrown off by that, but I still didn't like it.
Not a fan of that scene?
That part of the movie still don't like, but the rest of the movie I like more than I did before, so it evens out.
It evens out. Alright, because this film, I don't think I'm gonna surprise people, is really, really fucking popular. Like, Pulp Fiction is a movie that's been homaged, memed, and stolen from for like decades since it's come out. Like, I went through film school, and I can't tell you how many short films I saw that kids made that were just Pulp Fiction ripoffs.
How do you rip off Pulp Fiction like a short student film?
You know the scene where it's like Jules starts talking about the Big Kahuna burger and it's like a gangster thing in a crummy apartment?
Yeah.
Basically that scene.
I suppose.
Yeah, except you turn it into like Taco Bell or something.
Yeah.
Of course. You don't have to change
the whole point of using Big Kahuna burgers because it wasn't any of those big fast food chains.
I didn't say they were good.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say those shorts were good. Come on now.
Or that they got the point.
They got the point. But yeah, let's see if we can find the point with this one. So I'll give everybody the rundown of this interesting plot because you still refuse to do it. Yes. So this interconnected story follows the gangster hitmen Jules and Vincent as they settle a debt for their boss Marcellus Wallace. We also follow Vincent's near fatal night out with Mia Wallace and Butch, the washed up boxer, trying to escape town before he is killed by Marcellus Wallace for double-crossing him in a fixed fight. There's also a story of a robbery at a diner with Vincent and Jules caught in the middle.
Yes.
So yeah, there's like 4 different stories going on here, and they all just intermingle and cut between each other and kind of play out.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with at the beginning
which is the end. Or it's the middle.
Not the beginning, but the part of the movie after the initial diner scene.
Gotcha.
Where they're talking about massaging Mrs. Wallace's feet.
All right.
Now,
the real philosophical question of this film.
Who do you side with here?
Ooh.
Who do you side with on massaging Mrs. Wallace's feet?
That is a question, because that's an intimate thing, right? To massage another man's wife's feet.
Yes. I would have to agree with Vincent here. It means something. It might not mean as much as Marcellus Wallace is throwing a guy out a 4-story window into a greenhouse, but it definitely meant something.
But then we find out that there was no foot rub involved.
Yes, there's no foot rub involved. Only people that know why Marcellus Wallace threw Tony out of a 4-story window into a greenhouse is between Tony and Marcellus Wallace.
Also, Marcellus Wallace is just this ominous presence throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we see him, he just gets handled. Because through the first half of the movie, Marcellus Wallace is talked about in hushed tones.
Yes.
And is this dangerous crime boss. And then when we finally see him, he gets hit by a car.
Anybody would get handled being hit by a car. It really doesn't show how he's not such a badass, alright? He had to hit him with a fucking car,
And that still didn't put him down. So
yeah, exactly.
I guess. So, do you want to just follow the Vincent trail, the Vincent Vega main character arc through this movie, and then we'll, talk about everybody around it?
We can do whatever we feel like.
We can do whatever we feel like. This is our show. Alright, so we got Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta.
Yes.
Who was box office poison up to this point, and then...
Was he really?
Yeah. The mid to late 80s into the 90s were not great for him. Harvey Weinstein did not want to have him for the part. Quentin Tarantino had to basically say, I'll walk if you don't get Travolta on this movie. Because, he's a huge fan of Brian De Palma's Blowout. And was like...
That movie's great.
That movie's amazing. That should be on this list.
It's not?
It's not. Randy, lose face.
We'll have to... Alright. The final episode of the podcast, a 3-hour episode about how we're going to fix the list.
Yes, that's going to be the final episode. Right after Citizen Kane, we'll go deep.
All
right. But yeah, so Tarantino lobbied for Travolta to be in this. He's like, he's a great actor. He just needs a good part, a good script, and I got this for him. And I would tend to agree. Like,
yeah.
This is one of the best Travolta performances, right?
It's really good.
It's amazing. Not as good as Blowout, though, but pretty damn fucking good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And I guess the easiest way to follow it is... Because Vincent's the only character that's pretty much in every story, right?
Yes.
So, let's start with Jules and Vincent when they go to settle the debt with the boys, I guess.
Oh, with the guys in the apartment.
Yeah, where we first get, I am the Lord.
Yeah, the whole Ezekiel...
2317, 1723.
2712? Fuck, I'm gonna look it up.
If it helps, that whole thing, only like 1/5 of it is action from the Bible. The rest is Tarantino just doing a riff.
It is Ezekiel 2517, and Quentin Tarantino rewrote it for the movie.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's good. That's good. That's some hard shit right there. If somebody told you that with a gun at you, it's just over, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point, why Jules says it, but then it suddenly starts to mean something to him once he gets shot at by the guy coming out of the bathroom and doesn't get hit.
Bro, Jerry Seinfeld came out of that doorway and just blew them the fuck up. It's not Jerry Seinfeld, but it looks like Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Goodness. But yeah, that whole scene's great.
Oh, yeah.
Did I break your concentration?
Oh, God.
What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English in what?
Say what again, motherfucker? I dare you. I double dare you. There's so many quotable lines in this.
There's tons of quotable lines in this. A Royale with cheese.
No shit.
No shit. You know what this is called, a Royale with cheese? Metric system? You're a goddamn genius.
Just look at this smart motherfucker over here. Also, I'm going to ask you this. How would you define this movie for genre?
For genre?
Yeah, drama, crime, comedy, action, thriller.
Well, it has some noir elements where people kind of get like wrapped up in something they're not supposed to be involved with, but it's not really shot that way.
There's very, very few scenes you can even get close to with that, right?
So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like an action movie.
Well, here's the thing, because I saw an interview with Tarantino, and to this day says this is basically a comedy. This is like a crime comedy. And he's like, if you put this in anything other than the comedy section of your video store, you're wrong. And I've always wondered about that, because we watched the opening sequence where it's, Jules and Vincent, and they're walking in and they're talking, and we were laughing our asses off like 5 minutes into the movie.
It's really funny.
It's really funny. Like, there's a lot of comedy in this. And, the first whole chunk, even when Jules is popping off on fucking Brad, it is the funniest shit. Because he's just yelling at...
Or isn't his name Brett?
Brad. He's a dead white guy in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And then...
He's about as cooked as that big kahuna burger he was eating.
Yes. And it's so funny. That opening sequence is great. And then they open the briefcase, and that's another thing. Like, what the fuck's in that briefcase?
It's gotta be gold bars.
You saying gold bars?
I'm saying gold bars.
Not Marcellus Wallace's soul?
No, of course it's not Marcellus Wallace's fucking soul.
What if it's the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs?
It could be the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs, but it glows orange.
It's the stuff dreams are made of.
Yeah, it's gold fucking bars, the stuff green dreams are made of. We're gonna find that out once we get to the fucking Treasure Sierra Madre.
Oh man, I can't wait to get Treasure Sierra Madre. That's gonna be a banger. But besides the point, that's just a really well structured scene, and I think that goes into kind of how this movie was made.
Is this the best scene in the movie?
Honestly, I love the Mia Wallace and Vincent's night out. I love that.
Would you count all of that as one scene? Or would you count that as two different scenes? One...
Well, that's a whole sequence,
It's
right?
a whole sequence, yes, but would you count it as two scenes, where they're at the Elvis bar, and then afterwards when they get home, the whole ODing? I would count that as basically two scenes. But in the apartment with those guys, that's basically just one scene.
Yeah. Actually, if I had to say the best scene between characters like that, it might even be the final one, where it's just Jules in the diner, and he's talking to
Vincent beforehand, and then talking to the robbers.
Yeah, the fucking the dumbasses who decided to rob the wrong fucking diner that day.
The wrong diner.
And that one I think is just so good, because we're just so invested, and we know Jules, and we're like, oh man, this is the hardest motherfucker in the room, and it is so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. But yeah, I'm sorry I'm dominating the conversation.
No.
Something.
I wanted to know which one do you think is the best?
I would say the diner scene at the end. I would say the diner scene at the end because I say that because we have all this build up beforehand. Now that we know Jules, we know all that stuff.
And Jules is kind of having this like character moment of like kind of becoming like a more of like a religious man suddenly.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel that's a very interesting subversion of that character, and I really dig it.
I'm trying to think what I would say is my favorite scene. Now you made some good arguments for the diner scene. I really like the Elvis bar.
Oh, Jackrabbit Slims.
Jackrabbit Slims. It's a pretty good scene.
It's that $5 milkshake.
Damn, that's a good milkshake.
I don't know if it's
$5 good. It's a damn good milkshake. But I'd probably say the first scene at the apartment.
Yeah,
especially if you count the lead up to it, where they walk up to the apartment and they're like talking.
It's
they
very
discuss
good.
Massaging Mrs. Wallace's feet and throwing people out of 4-story windows onto greenhouses.
I mean, hey, that's just what you do, right?
I mean, if I was in Marcellus Wallace's shoes, I would not hesitate to throw a man out of a 4-story window. Protect my woman's feet.
Of course.
I'd be like her shoes to... No, just joking.
Jesus.
To protect those feet.
But yeah. But that's an interesting thing because we talk about that.
Wait,
it's like
real quick.
What do you got?
I don't want to cut you off too bad there.
Sure.
But since we're already on the subject, can we talk about Quentin Tarantino's foot fetish? We're already talking about how the beginning plot of this movie is almost based around Marcellus Wallace's wife's feet.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a thing that comes up in a lot of Tarantino films that people have observed is that he has this weird obsession with women's feet in his movies.
We can call it what it is. He's got a foot fetish, and it is quite obvious.
Yeah. He's got a foot fetish. It shows up a lot in his movies, and this is kind of the first time it's up front.
It's explicit.
Yeah. And that...
I guess I want to call it explicit. Because nobody fucks nobody's feet here. No?
Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's up front, and it is interesting, because a lot of people look at this and are like, oh, this is one of those postmodern films where it's all style over substance, but you really see the auteur in it. You really see Tarantino in this movie, because it's all like 70s, 80s grindhouse movie references.
Yes.
There's this like really weird personal story going on, because it's like he grew up in like fucking Inglewood. He grew up in these parts of LA, and it's this weird foot fetish stuff. I don't know about him being under any pawn shops with Marcellus Wallace. I don't know if that happened. But, like, it's one of these interesting things where this is
where he really shows through in the movie.
He really shows through in the movie.
He stars in it.
Yeah, well...
Self-inserts.
I don't think he starred... It's not a star, it's a fucking cameo, basically. And
it's a long cameo.
He wasn't
There's definitely shorter cameos in other movies.
He wasn't supposed to be that guy. It's the same thing that happened with Scorsese and Taxi Driver. The guy who was supposed to be Jimmy just didn't show up.
Oh, really?
And Tarantino was like, I'm not losing a day of filming. Harvey Weinstein will kill me. Or do what Harvey Weinstein does. And Tarantino's like, yo, I'll just step in. It'll be fine. I know the lines. I'm Tarantino. It'll be fine.
Nah, I'm sure that he told that guy to not show up that day.
Probably.
That's the way it goes.
Also, do you think Tarantino does coke? Because I did a review for True Romance. It's the only Tarantino script he didn't direct.
Okay.
And he said it's the most personal film he's ever written. And it's all about cocaine. So I'm like, do you think Tarantino does coke?
I mean,
or at least back in the day?
Probably. I don't want to say nothing about the guy that, he'll be offended with, because when people assume you do drugs and you don't, that's a personal deal to people, but I would be surprised if in this man's memoirs, there wasn't like a whole chapter about drugs.
I too would be
his relation with them, even if he doesn't do them, his relation with them in film, and people around him that do them. Quite likely that there is a big influence on his life somewhere or another through recreational drugs.
Copious amounts of drugs. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And before I forget, because the film's structure, why it's all this broken up stuff, is originally, this was supposed to be a bunch of short films that eventually they realized they couldn't make a bunch of short films because no big studio would give them money for that.
Yeah.
So they threw them together in this kind of weird post-narrative, just throw them all together, non-chronological film, kind of like French New Wavy in that sense, where it's not in the right order, but it's all there. And that's how this film came to be. It was supposed to be like 4 or 5 different short films that got thrown together. And I'm like, it kind of shows through, because each one of these stories is incredibly self-contained. In terms of the story they're telling.
100% self-contained, but they do have, like...
They have their distinct beginning, middle, and ends.
Well, you can definitely tell that they could be self-contained.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily have to intertwine. And so I think that shows, like you said, that they came from all these different ideas, but they did a good job stitching them together.
I think that's why Vincent is in all of them, because he's that through line that carries each one together. And it's like, okay, he's the guy that connects all these stories.
Yes.
You know, I've heard people...
And he's basically the main character.
Basically. Because I've heard people say that each one of these stories is just how a very particular person would tell how their day went. Where it's like, how would Jules describe his day? He's like, me and fucking Vincent broke into this guy's house, we got shot at, and they'd all missing. I had this fucking religious epiphany, and Vincent...
They didn't break in. They knocked and walked in.
And then shot like 4 people, alright?
They shot... Well...
Are you really going to be pedantic about how many people Jules shot?
He shot 3 people. Vincent shot 1.
Alright.
Well, technically, Vincent also shot 3 people.
He shot Marvin. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he shot Marvin. And he also shot the 2 other guys with
You
Jules.
Pedantic fuck.
I'm just saying, to clarify.
Sure. So, and then it's like, oh, what happened with Vincent's day? He's like, well, me and Jules had this thing, then I took Marcellus' Wallace's wife out, and then she, like, fucking OD'd, and then I got shot and taken a shit.
It was over the course of a couple days.
Probably.
Like 3 days.
Probably like 3 days.
Yeah, because he's out with Jules first.
Yeah, in the morning.
Then the next day, he's out with Marcellus Wallace, right? Or is it later that night?
Actually, I think it's later that night. Because when he gets to the bar and they have Vincent and Butch kind of have that meeting, it's implied that that night is when he's taking Mia out.
Okay, and so then it takes a course over 2 days.
Yeah. It's early morning into the next day early morning with Butch.
Yes.
Leaving, and that's probably the end chronologically to the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie gets a little confusing when you try and put it in a chronological order.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not Mulholland Drive bad.
Oh, man. Oh, God. Mulholland Drive. Go listen to that episode. It gets weird.
I take back my statement of that the movie totally works as a chronological, everything happens in reality thing for Mulholland Drive. I've taken that stance back.
You're taking that stance back?
I've taken that stance back.
It's in a dream?
It's in a dream.
I knew it! We did it, boys!
That's the way it goes.
Let's go.
You gotta know how to take your L's. These things happen. Speaking of taking L's, Bruce Willis did not want to take that L.
He did not take that L. I love the Butch storyline, because it's
good.
It is hard noir, too. Because that's a noir story. The boxer who, is paid to take a dive, but his pride stops him from doing it, and then, he has to get out of town. He's chased by the mobsters. That's a noir short film.
Yeah, 100%. Just totally fits that genre. Just straight up, except for the part where he hits Marcellus Wallace with his car and gets stuck in a basement.
I mean, hey.
Can we just get that out of the way and talk about the basement?
Yes, Tarantino really likes the movie Deliverance. That's basically it. Like, that is really? That's what that is a reference to. Because he's a huge Burt Reynolds fan. Okay. He's named after Burt Reynolds' character from Gunsmoke.
Okay.
So he's a huge Burt Reynolds fan. Deliverance is a really big movie in Burt Reynolds' catalog. It's also a really good movie. And that's basically his homage to fucking Deliverance in there.
But why? I hate the scene so much. It's just so uncomfortable and out of place, even for a movie where people get shot all the time.
That's the point, Randy. He's pushing the boundaries of taste.
Man, he always pushes the boundaries in his movies, and, I hate it.
You hate it?
I hate it, because he always goes a little too far. Like, Hateful Eight, I liked that movie some, near the beginning of the movie, and then after a while I was like, man, he's just going way too far.
The Hateful Eight went too far?
Way too far. Way too goddamn far.
I guess.
Quentin Tarantino, he's a great filmmaker, but he gets way too ambitious sometimes.
I think I like that about him, though.
Yeah.
I like the fact I guess at this point he's become a director that could kind of do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
And people will just let him do it.
But here's the thing. I kind of wish that would be one of those things where, he films it, right? But then he goes, maybe you shouldn't have done that. Leaves it on the cutting room floor type of thing.
I don't know.
You know, because it just comes off as not tasteful.
I think that's kind of the point.
I know.
Because he is this... Well, we can talk about Tarantino as an artist, right?
Sure.
Because I think it's not going to be too surprising to say that he's probably, at this point, one of, if not the most popular directors of the 20th century or the 21st century.
Yeah, he's got to be up there.
Yeah.
Because people recognize his movies.
Yeah, even people who aren't film people, they know it's like, oh, Django Unchained, that's Tarantino. Hateful Eight, Tarantino. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown.
Didn't he do Inglourious Basterds?
Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, he's done a bunch of movies, and all of them have been successful.
Yes.
Which is...
Well, not all of them. Hateful Eight, I don't believe was successful.
No, Hateful Eight made its money back.
Well, it made its money back, but I mean,
God.
was it as big as these other movies, like Inglourious Basterds or Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
People don't really reference Hateful Eight.
Yeah. So, is that your opinion? Is Hateful Eight the one Tarantino movie you're just not a fan of?
I think he bottomed out there.
That's the bottom?
I think that was probably his worst movie.
Really? I mean, that's still pretty good if that's his worst movie.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not like he's done making movies.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
We'll see if it gets worse from here. But anyways, that scene, it does kind of surprisingly neatly tie up between Butch and Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah.
It surprisingly neatly ties up their story for being such a gruesome, grotesque scene.
Yeah. I wonder how that was written. Because I feel it's very obvious that is a reference to Deliverance or some other weird movie or whatever. That's obviously a reference there. And I'm wondering if Tarantino or his writing partner Avery were like, hey, let's just come up with all these movies we want to reference and then just see if we can fit them into a script. Because even in Vincent and Mia Wallace's first meeting, when she's talking to him over the intercom, that's a direct reference to the Warriors, where the lady is talking into the microphone saying, the Warriors are going through Coney Island and all that other stuff. That's a direct visual reference to the Warriors.
Never seen the movie.
Oh, no? Oh, Warriors is really fun.
Yeah.
It's a really fun movie. It's great, and it's that nice slice of 70s, action, grindhouse, weird shit. It's just, it's awesome. And there's a bunch of movie references in here. It's all over the place. And,
well, Tarantino does like referencing other mediums.
Yeah,
and not even mediums, just other films.
Yeah, I mean that's where we get the idea that this is the most popular postmodernist film, where it's it's all style, no substance, or the style is the substance kind of thing.
Yes. And
I wonder about that. Is there no substance to this, or is this just pure unfiltered style of cinema?
I mean, I don't know how you
qualify
substance, but to me, there's definitely substance here. I mean, the conversations between the characters, you can definitely dig deeper into them. Yeah. Especially with Jules' character, I think is the one where you can dig the deepest into his character through the things he says, through his conversations.
Yeah.
Because he seems like he's having a deeply religious movement during this movie.
He is having a existential crisis through this film, because he's I should be dead right now, and I'm not. An act of God saved me, and I don't know why.
Which is could be a story all on its own. This hitman has a miracle happen to him where he doesn't die in a hail of bullets and suddenly rethinks his life. You could make a whole movie out of just Jules' story.
Yeah. Honestly, I would love to see, I guess we could... I don't want a Pulp Fiction 2, because I feel that would be horrible.
Yes.
But I would really enjoy to see a movie that just followed Jules around. Because I think Jules is an incredibly interesting character that I want more of.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not like Samuel L. Jackson would reprise the role.
It's true.
And so the movie would just be full stop, not as good as we want it to be.
Full stop over.
Full stop would just not be as good as we would want it to be.
Almost forgot. And this is the return of Samuel L. Jackson, who we've seen before in Do the Right Thing.
What character did he play in Do the Right Thing?
He was the radio host.
Really?
Yeah, that was Samuel L. Jackson.
Huh.
Basically, before before Samuel L. Jackson, met up with Quentin Tarantino, he had a career doing bit parts in Spike Lee movies, and also a bit part in Goodfellas. We'll see that soon.
I kind of see it. Really?
Yeah,
man, he really changed over the course of just 5 years.
Put a Jerry curl on and a beard, and boom, different human being.
Also, he's definitely more Samuel
motherfucking Jackson.
Samuel motherfucking Jackson, as we know him today.
Yes, I mean. That is kind of interesting, because I mentioned John Travolta. This was his comeback movie.
Very good.
Very good. Bruce Willis was actually basically a box office bomb for a couple of years leading up to this, but he still had like some star power. So when he got attached to this, he got on cheap, but he pumped up the budget. So that's why this went from like $8 million to like $15 million to be made.
That cost $15 million to be made?
Actually, I might be full of shit on here. I can actually give you a real number. Because it did start at $8 million, but to be made, eventually it cost about $11 million. Yeah, so, and like $5 million of that just went to the cast, basically.
Okay.
So
things other than the cast cost about $6 million.
Basically.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
It feels like that, right?
It feels more like that. I was like, because they use a lot of like dingy motels as their backdrops, you know, and I'm like, those things do not cost that much to rent out.
Probably
right?
not. Nah.
Probably not.
But yeah,
I guess, gotta close down a street for the whole like Butch and Marcellus Wallace scene, you know.
Yeah. You have to basically build a restaurant.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. You have to rent out a whole diner. You have to you can burn a lot of money and hide a lot of money in movies. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so this was the comeback film for John Travolta. Bruce Willis did this and basically came back as a viable box office star.
Which is kind of weird because like he was Die Hard. Well, he doesn't have that much of a huge presence in this movie. Like he really showed his acting chops much.
Bro, let's be honest here. Between Bruce Willis now, who has stopped caring, to Bruce Willis here actually cares about his work.
True. He was pretty good in the scene where he freaks out about his watch.
Yeah. Which is awesome because you get Christopher Walken telling him about how he hid this watch up his ass for 2 years to bring it to you.
Such a weird sequence because you could tell exactly where the cut is between Christopher Walken being extremely serious in acting.
He is giving an Oscar performance.
Like, it cuts from him, like, the camera kind of, like, looking up at him to the camera being kind of, like, facing him directly on. Mm-hmm. And he just totally cuts the bull crap and just does Christopher Walken and just kind of says everything from there on just straight without any of the serious overtones, and you're just like, what the fuck?
It's so good.
It's funny. I mean, I can pretty much agree with Tarantino that it's basically a comedy.
Yeah. I feel it's
a dark comedy.
It's a comedy with guns, basically.
But the thing though is that it'd be a very dark comedy because, the whole basement scene is a very dark scene.
Very dark. Vincent gets gatted. Like, also there's another thing. Why does everybody go to the bathroom?
Well, people go to the bathroom.
I know, but think about it. In movies,
yes.
We've watched, like, I don't know, 5-6 movies up to this point. How many times in those movies have we seen anyone say, I'm going to go take a piss?
Like, once?
Maybe. Here, it's like 5 times.
No, I think we've seen it, like, twice. I think in Mulholland Drive somebody does, and in the last picture somebody does as well.
Alright, but in this movie, so it's 2 across 2 different films over like 6 movies, and in this one it's like 6 times. 5-6 times.
Yes. Well, because here's the thing though, is that the characters are portrayed in a more realistic way in this movie. They have kind of these realistic conversations you could imagine yourself having. Yes. Even though they're in situations which are kind of extraordinary. It's like the example we'll use is the initial diner scene where the guy's talking about like how to rob places or what places to rob. Mm-hmm. We don't rob places.
We do not.
But that is totally a conversation we could have where we just pontificate on what would be the best places to rob. Where would you have the highest chance of not being caught by the police and still get a little bit of money out of it,
Right.
It's just these like random things you pontificate on. It's like, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it? But instead it's talking about like, if you had to rob a place, what place would you rob?
Yeah.
And they have perfectly reasonable conversation,
Or the whole thing with like
talking about massaging Marcellus Wallace's feet.
That's exactly where I was going.
Talking about Amsterdam. They all are perfectly reasonable conversations.
You were in a movie pilot? Oh, what was that like? Oh, that's kind of cool. There's a lot of very real interesting dialogue beats. I've heard a lot of people say they love how Tarantino writes dialogue. because
it sounds like normal people.
Yeah, I think it sounds like normal people because normal people generally talk about bullshit.
Yes.
And this is just bullshit, but underneath the bullshit, there's actually, like, stuff there, which is really interesting. What is it? I think somebody said that Mia Wallace telling Vincent about the television pilot she was on is literally Tarantino explaining Kill Bill without making a point about it. Because it's the Fox Force 5, and they're all symbolic of who they are, and she's the Knife Masters and the Bryce the Sword.
Look at this guy.
Hey, what's
Tarantino,
up?
you really know how to shoehorn them bitches in, don't you?
Damn right. But yeah.
Like, I think that's... What was the original point you made?
Oh, I was miles away. I was talking about samurai swords.
No, it was, you were asking why people did something in the movie.
Oh, go to the bathroom all the time.
Oh, go to the bathroom all the time.
Yeah.
So, I think it's just because they're written more like normal people, and there's kind of like a reason for them to go to the bathroom in this movie. Like, he goes to the bathroom, or Vincent goes to the bathroom, when he's at the house with Mia, to kind of, like, gather himself to make sure that he doesn't fuck Marcellus Wallace's wife, because you don't fuck Marcellus Wallace's wife.
You don't even rub her feet. That's how you get thrown.
Don't even rub her goddamn feet.
Throw 4 stories into a greenhouse.
I'm pretty sure Vincent is not convinced that he was thrown out of a 4-story, what is called a 4-story window for not rubbing Marcellus Wallace's wife's feet.
That should happen.
I'm pretty sure he's still convinced. So he's really trying to, like, gather himself to bring himself out of the house without getting jiggy with Marcellus Wallace's wife.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go home, jerk off, and
yes,
go to sleep.
Exactly. He's like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna tell her that I had a great evening, but that I have to go home now. Go home, jerk off, and go to sleep.
That guy right there.
And then he walks out, and this bitch has snorted some heroin.
Which, my God, that is such, like, tension, right? Because I love that whole sequence where she's like, the bitch is ODing, man, and they go in and that conversation where you have fucking Eric Stoltz looking for the fucking medical book, and his wife is like, what book? I've never seen that book. You would know where it was if you clean that shit up. And he's like, the bitch is ODing. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Oh my God, that whole sequence where he's, like, yelling at her to, like, go get the adrenaline shot. And she's just like, you're yelling at me, you know? Like, what is this bitch ODing on my floor for? And he's like, just get the fucking adrenaline shot.
Get the fucking needles.
Get the fucking shot. You know? And it's funny because it's almost relatable for being such an out of the realm of possibility for normal people. Like, a situation to happen to you.
Well,
but that whole thing where you're like panicked, you're like trying to get something done, and you're just like, well, you stop arguing with me and just fucking do it.
How many times has that happened in our home where it's just like you're in the middle of something, you're like, I don't know, putting up a fucking shelf and you're holding it up, it's like, hey, can you grab me the screws? Like, this thing's gonna fall over. It's like, where are the screws? They're like right there. They're like right there. He's like, where's there? It's like next to the fucking thing. The right fucking there. I've had that conversation with you at least like once a month for the last 15 years.
Well, yeah, these things happen. You know, it's why I like really love the dialogue, the interaction between the characters in this movie. It's because it's so real. You know, you feel something there. You know, it's why I feel like there's more than just style here.
Yeah, and also the thematic stuff going on with Jules alone. You know, a man who basically faked faith for so long and then finally sees that's like and finds it in a sense. And
which is very interesting. I kind of want to have like a deep dive on like the theological thing of Jules, you know, kind of seeing the light.
Well, okay, welcome to Randy's Red Room. Let's go in.
Randy's Red... Shut the fuck up. We'll talk about Randy's Red Room when I start quoting fucking Jimmy at the house about storage. Jesus
Christ. All right, let's get in.
But Jules kind of has this like moment, right, where so Vincent says that the moment is not out of the question.
It's a coincidence.
It's a coincidence. You know, these things happen. They don't happen very often, but they do happen.
You just got lucky.
You just got lucky, you know. And Jules says, no, this is like a miracle. Like, we should be dead now.
It's an act of God.
It's an act of God. And I think the difference here is that Vincent didn't feel that, like, extra presence, you know? While Jules says he did. He felt, like, when it happened, he felt that extra presence. He felt that kind of, like, extra thing happening in that moment. And this is a great question about faith, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Vincent kind of needs this proof while Jules doesn't. He just feels it. So, do you think it's, like, completely genuine for Vincent to feel the way he does? Because he's very standoffish about it. And very kind of, like, that he doesn't want to believe that it was a miracle. Do you think it's because it conflicts with his, like, way of life?
His laissez-faire attitude.
His laissez-faire attitude of life, and also the fact that he kills people for a living.
And he doesn't have any qualms about it, and he's a heroin addict, and yeah, I don't... Okay, I'm not gonna say I don't know, because that's not a good conversation point, but I will give my thought on it, even if it's not well thought out. I think that Vincent, if he's not convinced by this, nothing would convince him. And I think that's why he dies.
You think so?
He is confronted by a literal miracle, because, like, I'm be real with you. If that was not a big room...
If you look at the scene, right? Because I paid attention to this when we were watching. There is a bullet hole on the wall behind where Jules was standing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
No, but there's, like...
There's one real big one, yeah.
No. There's, like, 5 that are, like, an outline of him, and one that's, like, straight through his chest.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm talking about. There's, like, an outline where you can see, like, oh, they, like, kind of, like, trace this, like, outline above his, like... You know, there's, like, one above his, like, I think it was his right shoulder, like, one above his head, one above his left shoulder, and then, like, 2 more on the wall.
Yeah.
To the, like, left of him. But there's, like, one that would have gone straight through his chest. Like, literally the bullet hole's right behind him in the scene.
That's the thing. Vincent and Jules are confronted by literal, like, divine intervention. Yes. Jules accepts it, and he lives. Vincent denies it, and he dies. I wonder if there's something going on here where... with those characters, accepting the faith is a way of salvation because it gets you out of this life.
Do you think this is like an on purpose like thing that Quentin Tarantino has into the movie, or something that people glean from the movie that he didn't intend for, where Jules gets saved by faith?
I don't know if Jules actually has any faith when he gets shot at. I feel he's just somebody who's spiritual.
Later.
Oh, later?
Yeah, he doesn't die like Vincent does. He gives up his life of crime and whatnot, which probably going to save his life in the long run. I mean,
he's going to walk the earth.
Yeah, he's going to walk
the earth.
Be a bum. Be a bum, as Vincent calls it.
Yeah.
Do you think that because he has that faith in him, and Vincent is more confronted with the miracle and denies it, and that's why Vincent dies?
I think so. I think that's it. Because
you will know his vengeance, for his name is Lord.
You will know his name. You will know his name because he is the Lord. But yeah, also that's another thing. That whole spiel that Samuel L. Jackson gives in this, Jules gives in this, where you will know my name because it is the Lord when I strike down furious anger and vengeance upon thee.
Yes.
Furious anger and vengeance, that is Jules and Vincent. They are the ones striking down this vengeance, right?
Yeah, and the tyranny of evil men, which would be Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah. And then Vincent and Butch, because Butch he's the shepherd. He's trying to lead Fabiana out of this or whatever, and she's an innocent.
Real quick, how old is Fabiana?
Oh, I don't know. I would assume she's probably like in her 20s. I don't know.
Sure, she looks really young.
I think that might just be because the actress just looks really young. I don't actually know.
All right. We're just gonna avoid it? All right. Okay.
Well, here's the thing.
She looks really young.
I didn't think she looked that young.
Really?
I didn't think so.
She's like really small, and the way she talks is kind of like this naive, really young way to look at everything.
If it's because I don't know if that's
if it's
ever
supposed
implied.
to be like implied that she's 16, you've never really seen it.
I've never really noticed, to be honest. It might just be a thing where it's like it never looked that weird, because I always assumed she was like pregnant is what they're talking about. And it's like, oh, okay, and I guess that might just be my own naivete about this. It's like, oh, she's pregnant. Okay, so they're probably like, he's probably like, oh, in his mid to late 30s, and she's probably like in her 20s, like she was supposed to be like the trophy wife for the boxing champ that never was, and whatever. But like I just always thought she was of age, at least the very least.
Because I kind of got this kind of like feeling from her, because she's really like petite and kind of like weirdly mousy, and kind of like naive about things. It's like she seemed kind of young to me, at least. I don't know if this is like just weird, but it seemed like a little off, I
mean, if you read into it like that, I couldn't blame you, but I just don't think that's there.
Do you think it would make sense?
Maybe. Actually, if it is, and she is supposed to be younger, then I think that goes back into Jules' quote thing where it's like the shepherd and the children or something like that.
Yeah, the Keeper of the Lost Children.
Yeah, the Keeper of the Lost Children. I mean, maybe Bruce Willis is in the most fucked up sense of the word. Butch is, the Keeper of the Lost Children, start bringing him through that, and he kills the evil that is, and he strikes down the furious vengeance upon Vincent. And that's the defense. I feel that quote, that spiel, because it is Ezekiel, but Tarantino rewrote it. A lot of it. I feel that is the key to this entire movie.
Yes, it is.
In that, quote verse that goes through this whole thing, because there's a religious theme going on in this with Jules. There's the shepherd and the leader of the lost children with Butch, and I feel the only thing we really need to connect this is Mia Wallace and Vincent here to really like round that whole thing out. I mean, I don't know if it's a coincidence that Eric Stoltz's character looks like Jesus. Looks like Dude Bro Jesus.
Dude Bro Jesus.
I mean, come on.
So dumb. But, like, I think the whole thing about the quote that might take us a little back here is that I don't think the quote necessarily puts any of them into, like, into one category of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that Jules and Vincent are the ones besetting people with the tyranny of evil men.
Yeah.
Because you could say Marcellus Wallace is probably an evil guy.
Yeah.
But you could also say that Jules is the shepherd. Like he says in the end, right? That he is the shepherd, but then he also says that he might not be. He's also the tyranny of the evil men.
But he's trying real hard.
He's trying real hard to be the shepherd, And it's one of those things where the characters fit more than one of these roles here in this quote at different times in the movie or at the same time. And so it's kind of like this thing that gets you thinking about what the quote means, like how Jules is going through this whole process of like, becoming the shepherd.
Vincent does not want to be the shepherd.
He does not.
And that's why he gets got.
He gets got because he took shit.
Bruh, there's some deadly shits in this world.
That is a deadly shit.
But yeah, honestly, I feel that like that's a whole theological and thematic discussion that'll go
way long,
real long,
and we could get really deep if we wanted to. But I think we're gonna stick to the subject matter at hand and go through maybe some other parts of the movie that we didn't touch on, like accidentally shooting Marvin.
Yeah, you know that
and dead
actor,
dead and with storage.
Yeah. But you know that actor who plays Marvin, Philip Lamar.
Sure.
So that's the voice of Green Lantern in the Justice League cartoons.
Uh-huh.
So we had Nick Fury and Green Lantern in the same car together, being
God.
shot by Danny Zuko from Greece.
God.
Just bruh, the worlds they're coming together, man. Sorry, I had to do that.
Cringe.
Oh, go fuck yourself, bro. All right. Hey, I thought it was neat.
It's neat. Yeah, I agree. It is pretty neat. But was it a bump in the road?
It was an act of God.
What? No, there's no way. No.
Yeah, bro, this movie's about coincidences and
true
and divine intervention. And is this a coincidence or is it a divine intervention? Is it an accident or is it a plan?
It's Vincent's fault.
It's Vincent's fault?
Vincent's fault. Man, he should have kept his booger picker off the trigger.
That is Randy's favorite gun safety line.
You keep your booger picker off the bang switch. He's practicing terrible trigger safety.
Terrible trigger safety. But yeah, so
he doesn't really practice any trigger safety throughout the whole movie.
No, not those kind of guys.
The only thing you see about any kind of safety in this movie is when Jules uncocks his 1911 when he's talking or when he's pointing it at what's his name, the robber in the diner.
Yeah.
Which also, isn't the gun like a double action? Like you just pull the why do you uncock it? It does nothing.
Bruh,
you just pull the trigger.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, it would make a lot more sense if it was like a freaking hand cannon. It was like the hand cannon the guy shot at them at the beginning.
Randy is nitpicking. How many bodies did they shoot? Nitpicking who's got
another
the gun.
thing about the guns in the movie.
Son of a bitch.
So Jules, right, when they both unload into like Brett or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah. Dead white dude number 4.
Dead white dude. No, number 2.
Fuck you.
Dead white dude number 2, who's eating the big kahuna burger. So they unload on him, right? And I see in the movie, that when they're done unloading, Jules's gun cocks open on an empty magazine.
Empty chamber, yeah.
Or an empty magazine.
Yeah.
So, did he reload before the guy came out with the revolver? He had to have, right? Or is it one of those movie things where you just don't need to reload if you're cool, right?
It was an act of God.
It was an act of God
It's
that he
an
suddenly had
act
a
of
full
God.
magazine to shoot the other guy with.
It's an act of God. Or maybe
Also,
it was
kind
empty,
of funny.
But maybe it was empty, and then when they pulled the guns out, Vincent was the only one who killed him.
No, but
Look, that's the thing. Jules' hands are clean of that death.
But I mean,
And Vincent
but
is
thing
the
is,
divine
Jules
hammer.
shoots too, and his gun definitely shoots.
But
also,
Jesus magic.
another thing though is that so Jules, which you kind of brought up a little bit of this point, but so Jules is like, it was a miracle what happened to us, but he still shot the guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey.
I don't know how the Lord's gonna look down upon that.
Guy came out and started, blasting off with a 44, all right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if, God is whole into the, stand your ground state type of thing. Well, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Okay, I've heard that. I've heard this before, and
Oh.
it's one of those mean things like God's opinion on the Second Amendment is don't shoot to kill, shoot to blow the kneecaps off at a safe distance. And I'm like,
God.
what the fuck's wrong with these people? I've seen that bumper sticker, and I've been freaked out to rear end that person.
That's such a boomer bumper sticker. I'm sorry to use the phrase.
Ah.
Goodness gracious. But so anyways, he shoots Marvin, right? And
Yeah.
it's basically his fault,
Yeah.
But they go to Jimmy's house, right? Because they have to get off the road because of this giant bloody mess
There
in the back
is
of their
there
car.
is a bunch of blood all over the
Huge
place.
amount of blood. Also, another thing I noticed, they didn't break the back window.
They also said Marvin's head got blown off, but when we see him at the end, his head is fully there. It has a hole in it.
Well, yeah, but the back of his head probably blew the fuck up.
Hey, they said he was decapitated. They said the head was gone.
Probably hit him, turned 90 degrees inside, and then blew out the back like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But also, it doesn't go through the back windshield.
Right.
Kind of strange.
Bro, those old cars.
Well, I
man.
guess it is a 9mm.
9mm.
9mm couldn't hurt a flea.
Yeah,
couldn't hurt a
fine.
flea.
Come on, give that to my kids.
Marvin's fine, dude. He'll
Walk that shit off.
Alright, a little anecdote, just a complete tangent, unrelated mostly, is have you ever seen that post online or whatever where this guy was like, I was shooting myself with BBs trying to work up my immunity to bullets?
What?
It's not real. It's a meme or whatever. This guy just took a picture of his leg after he got caught in barbed wire or something, so it looks like there's a bunch of little holes in it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, I've been working my way up to 22. I'm working my way up to 22 long rifle soon. Working up my immunity to bullets. It's just hilarious.
That sounds like something someone would be dumb enough to try.
Oh, please don't. Oh my god. It's just one of those things where it's so dumb it's hilarious.
Yes. Like shooting Marvin in the face.
Oh my god. Or the way Quentin Tarantino talks to them about, the sign in his front yard and how it's not there.
Yeah. Dude, Tarantino got a lot of controversy and a lot of shit for that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, because it's the whole thing where the use of the N-word is prolific throughout this film.
Yes.
And it was written by two white dudes, and then you have one of the writers saying the N-word multiple times in a scene.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And people had some thoughts were like, bruh, can you fucking not, though?
So, do you know what his response was to the controversy over it?
I grew up in Inglewood. That, I swear to God, I think that was his legitimate response was, I grew up in, I was born in Torrance, I grew up in Inglewood, I worked at a porno theater because I lied about my age at 16, what the fuck did you expect me to write when say write what you hear?
You know what, Tarantino, it's a perfectly reasonable answer. I'll accept it.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but that is what I've heard being told, alright?
You know what? I'm over here being in my opinion, that is a perfectly reasonable answer to that. Just being you know what? It's where I grew up, man. It's just the way it goes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I doubt he'd say that to, use it in any kind of derogatory sense to anybody in real life.
Probably not.
But, if anybody, leave in the comments, below if he actually did or not. But the use of the word, I think he tries to make it more natural throughout the movie.
Yeah.
To where it's not that big of a deal when when the word comes up for the 7th time in the movie. It's kind of part of the course at that point.
Yeah. And a lot of the times it's used by Samuel L. Jackson or Marcellus Wallace. I think the only not Or I think the only white dudes we hear say it are the fucking backwood hillbillies in the pawn shop.
Yes.
And Tarantino, I think, are the only ones, right?
Does Wolf say it?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
How are your thoughts on the usage of the word in the movie? To go back to the original point.
My thoughts on the use of the word?
Because, I mean, this is something we kind of have to discuss at some point during this thing. I mean, we didn't discuss it during
Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing.
Well, not nearly as much as we really should have. But my thinking of it is its use here. In this film, it's almost comes off naturally, which is a really fucked up thing to say. Where I'm like,
people do use it naturally in the real world.
Yeah, but it's like I don't feel there's any the people who use it with malice, that is the point of the characters, to be those kind of people, and the people who use it in friendly connotations are using it in friendly connotations kind of thing.
But I think my opinion on it is that, and I really don't care if you use it, like, personally, my personal opinion is I don't really care the use in the movie or anything like that, or movies in general. I think he used it too much.
You think he used it too much?
I think he used it too much. Like, I don't care that if you put the word in your movie, but I'm just like, it came off like he was like really giddy to like be able to use it. You know,
it came off like he's just like, ooh, we're gonna use some like word seasoning on these. Yeah,
you know, scenes. Like especially like the scene in which he's in, where he kind of like repeats it over and over again.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I get it, Tarantino. That's a funny bit, but it's a little funny bit. It's a little gratuitous after a while. Also, is the Jimmy scene the funniest bit in the movie?
I think the whole scene is really good, all put together, where he's talking about like his fine, like, you know, my Aunt Jenny got me these, and they're no longer with us. You know, it was a wedding present for my aunt, uncle. You know, and he's
and
like,
Wolf is like, dude, what the fuck are you talking
Wolf
about?
Wolf is like, I understand, but Marcellus Wallace will have to pay you for some new linen. You know, just very matter of fact. And Wolf is so good in that scene.
Yes! Harvey Keitel is great in all of his scenes.
So good in that scene.
Oh, what is it? And he's like, all right, boys, so I know you've been to county, so you know the drills.
You've been to county before, and they have to strip, and he hoses them off.
Yeah.
And then they get in the outfits, and they look like a bunch of dorks.
Yep.
Also, what did they do to that car?
That car? They took it to the junkyard. That thing got crushed and shipped off to,
you think they
to
got
Australia.
crushed or stripped for parts?
Dude,
both?
Probably both.
Bofa.
Probably both of them. Raquel was like, "Oh, Wolf's showing up with a car. All right, I'm gonna get the good
get
guys
out the
here.
Atom Smasher.
Get out the Atom Smasher, and that shit's gonna be trucked off to like fucking China to be melted for parts."
Thing down, yeah.
But yeah, like this is a really just fun movie, and it's really good.
It is really fun. That's probably why I dislike the basement scene so much.
It stops the fun.
It stops the fun. It's not a fun scene.
It stops being fun and gets a little kind of fucked up. It only starts being fun-y kind of when Butch goes upstairs and he starts looking for a weapon and gets the hammer. He's like, no. Gets the
baseball bat.
He's like, wait.
Oh, this is something I wanted to bring up earlier. Do you think there's a significance or just a cool factor in him grabbing the katana?
Well, baseball bat and Glorious Bastards. Samurai sword, Kill Bill.
Other than a reference.
A reference to movies he hadn't made yet. Like the significance of him grabbing the samurai sword?
Yeah.
I almost feel like that probably is a reference to something else. Probably his love of kung fu movies, to be honest. He was probably like, yo, I got lucky with Reservoir Dogs, and no one's going to give me another movie after this. I'm going to put everything in here.
So you don't think that has any kind of significance to like the Pacific Theater and like the guy's watch?
Oh, fuck, I didn't even see that shit. Ooh, yeah, they're a smart boy. Well, because his dad dies in a POW camp in Vietnam. And
his grandfather was the one who died in Wake Island, I believe?
Wake Island in the Pacific Theater during World War II. And I'm like, that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, he takes the samurai sword, where it's like, his family, you know, basically fought all the people of, like, Asia for, like, 2 wars.
Asia and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm taking this piece of your culture to, you know, defend somebody. And it's very interesting. That's actually an interesting,
it's one of those things where it's like, it's probably not intentional. You just probably want to reference it with a cool samurai sword.
And also, samurai swords are cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of think about it and it makes this neat little connection.
Also, I like the watch thing because I'm like, yeah, that is a completely rational response to that.
Oh, when Fabiana forgets his watch and he throws the fucking TV at the wall.
Yeah, dude, if you found out, like, okay, because we don't have any family heirlooms of that level of
that level of significance.
where it's just like my great grandfather bought this before going off to fucking war, and then my grandfather had to send this back after knowing he was gonna die in a fucking island in the middle of nowhere, and then my father smuggled it in his ass in a POW camp in Vietnam, and then has his friend smuggle it in his ass to save it to get it to me. But like, if you found out your significant other left that kind of watch somewhere and she like lost it,
I'm pretty pissed. I'd probably take it worse than he did. I mean, he calmed down pretty fast, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was just kind of like, it's not your fault. Should have made it more clear.
It's very important to me.
Very important to me. Should have made that perfectly obvious. And obviously, I did not.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Here's some money. Have a good breakfast. Good day.
That's another reason why, I'm not to be weird, but why I think Fabiana's kind of young, is it doesn't snap at her as hard as, maybe would be expected, because he, believes that she's more naive.
I don't know. She's a very weird character, and now I'm thinking about it, it's like she might, if she is of age, she is on just this side of 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be the most likely scenario, is that she's just there.
Right.
Speaking of relationships in the movie, what about something we kind of glossed over before with Mia and Vincent?
Oh, they would have banged.
100%.
100%. Not a doubt in my goddamn mind. Vincent would have banged Mia Wallace, and Marcellus Wallace would have found out, and Vincent would have gone down 4 stories into a greenhouse. I wonder if that's a thing that Marcellus Wallace knows that Mia Wallace does, is like sleep around with his boys, and then he just is like, he knows it, but he uses it as an intimidation factor and just starts like fucking icing dudes.
Or to really have that hard check on loyalty.
That might be it.
Who can he really trust? I mean, after that night, he's like, I can really trust Vincent Vega.
He's like,
he gets shit done.
He did get shit done.
And shit he gets done is not my wife.
Man. Also,
he trusts this man with a MAC-10 to go kill Butch, doesn't he?
He did.
Although I guess it was a little misplaced because I guess,
he had a bad
Vincent
breakfast.
died of dysentery.
Oh my god. Dude, guess what happened to Butch's dad?
Died of dysentery. 2 people die of dysentery in this movie. Butch's dad and Vincent die of dysentery.
I like that meme where it's like, Walken's telling him, he's like, your dad shoved this up his ass and carried it for 2 years. Then he died of dysentery. And I'm like, I wonder if this is related.
Of course it's related. God damn it. But, the scene where they dance in,
Jackrabbit Slims.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi's in it.
Steve Buscemi is in it as the waiter.
Yeah, the terrible Buddy Holly.
We should have sat in the Marilyn Monroe area.
Yeah.
There's 2 Marilyn Monroes. Well, one of them's actually this other actress.
Yeah, you get fucked. It's good.
Also, the dance.
Okay, so our mother has said on more than one occasion that John Travolta is one of the best dancers she's ever seen in a movie. Right? And she points to this movie all the fucking time. Is this true?
I have to say so. The thing about their dance that makes it really good is that it looks simple, but I'm pretty sure we couldn't do it.
There's way too much just subtle body movement stuff going on for that to just be an on the fly.
No, you can
kind of
definitely tell they worked on it.
Yeah. I mean, there's another thing about this. I'm going to go back to John Travolta here. He's the most engaging person when given the right material, right? You cannot take your eyes off of him.
Yeah.
People said that John Travolta could have been the next Brando, but then they found out that it's like, well, unlike Brando, Travolta needs a good director and a good script. Yes. Brando, he could just fucking show up and he was just, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. Travolta here, I can't take my eyes off. When he starts doing the dance, you're just all in.
Yeah.
You watch him dance for 5 fucking minutes and it's just like, I can't look away. Yeah, I should be going to take a piss.
The way he kind of moves with her, where he's trying to not get too close, she kind of moves in on him and he kind of has to back up.
And then when it keeps going, then he kind of moves in on her and it's real slow and less aggressive than she is. And that whole dance number quantifies
shows this cat and mouse game in their relationship, where she's trying to get something out of him, right? And he's kind of
he's playing a coy. He's dancing and you can tell he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go home and jerk off after this. I ain't getting thrown out a 4-story window through a glass house.
Exactly. It's such like little subtle things, you know?
I think that's the thing. This movie has a lot of subtleties in it that are just really good.
I think that's kind of one thing that Quentin Tarantino kind of excels with, is having these little subtleties in these bombastic movies.
Oh, yeah. Just to go on a little tangent, because I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and I read the novelization of it.
I did not do either.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, after reading the novelization, I'm like, yeah, the movie is just, it's wall to wall with all these references to like 60s Hollywood and like that era of Hollywood and all this stuff, and kind of like how this was the last kind of turn of like hopeful Hollywood filmmaking and all that stuff. And it's insanely well written. I think that's probably why he won an Oscar for the script. But yeah, that's just the thing. I think Tarantino is a master screenwriter, where he's able to put in all these subtleties in the dialogue and the action scenes and all
also
these
like
beats.
kind of these ham-fisted references, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if that's the thing. He puts these big ham-fisted references in there, but it's to distract from all the weird subtle nuance auteur shit.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you know, like Samuel L. Jackson being a badass with a gun kind of distracts away from his like religious epiphany.
Him basically looking like Shaft probably is on purpose. He basically told the art guy, just like, hey, get me a Shaft afro for Samuel L. Jackson. And he brought him back a Jerry curl because the prop guy was a white dude and didn't know what a fro was. And he was like, no. He shall have a Jerry curl, which is neato. But yeah, I think that's a point. Like, Samuel L. Jackson's supposed to look like this Shaft character, but he's having this deep religious like epiphany thing going on. Vincent's, I guess, supposed to look...
And he's kind of like a serious, no-nonsense character, you know?
Yeah. He's a bad motherfucker.
He's a bad motherfucker. Like, Vincent's more jokey than he is.
I don't know, there's so many good characters in this.
Mostly Vincent's so great. You know, I watched Blowout and I was like, man, John Travolta, great actor. I watched Pulp Fiction, you know, after watching Blowout, and I'm like, man, he really is a good actor.
Yeah!
This guy knew his stuff.
Yeah, God damn it, dude. Like, that's the thing I keep...
It's something you don't really realize, you know? You're like, yeah, John Travolta, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where people remember him in Grease, and then they're like, oh, that's Travolta, right? Yeah. But no, like, Travolta, given the right material, is an amazing Brando level of actor. Given the right material, right director, insanely good. I'll die on that hill.
Something we touched on earlier, what's in the briefcase? I said it was gold. What do you say it is?
Okay, to be...
I want a straight answer from you.
Okay. Because it is supposed to be a reference to this other movie from the 50s, Kiss Me Deadly, but whatever. It's supposed to be uranium. But my honest opinion is... Okay, I'm going to get really up my own ass about this, so hold my beer.
Go straight for it. I want an honest opinion.
It's the stuff dreams are made of. It is something different for everyone who looks into it. It is... I think it's some sort of thing, because it opens and it glows,
yes.
Right? And it glows, and it's something like... Vincent is like, this is amazing. Like, we got it. And then when the robber opens it, Tim Roth's character opens it, and he's like, is that exactly what I think it is?
Is that what I think it is?
And Jules is like, oh yeah, buddy. And he's like, it's beautiful. And it's like, I feel it's something different for whoever looks into it. Because obviously it glows, right?
Sure.
And if it fucking glows, then it can't be, like, some real tangible object. And I feel it's something where it's like, if you're looking into it, the film is expressing
kind of like the glow might just be some kind of, like, effect to make it more, like, important.
Well, that's the thing, because we're looking at it through the eyes of a film,
yes.
Right? And I feel in the film, it's glowing, and maybe and I think the characters are not seeing a glow.
Yeah,
we as the audience are seeing a glow, and it's like, I feel that is a symbolic thing where whatever is in there, it's almost irrelevant. What's in there is the MacGuffin. Sure.
Yeah, I would agree that whatever's in there is pretty much irrelevant to the story, other than Marcellus Wallace wants it badly.
It's his soul.
It's not his soul.
No, it's in
my opinion, it's just some fucking it's
Mia
bars.
Wallace's feet pics.
Oh. Everybody looks at them and they're like, "Damn, them some nice feet pics." You know, the guy at the what's it called? The guy at the diner looks at him. He's like, "Damn, man, them some great feet pics."
They're beautiful,
beautiful. That's what I think they are. Marcellus Wallace's wife's feet.
My word.
My God. Which we do get to see her feet at some point in the movie.
Yes, we do. But
and I gotta make it a point, and by they I mean Quentin goddamn Tarantino has to make it a point.
Yes, Quentin goddamn Tarantino.
So what have we not talked about yet so far?
Okay, we talked about the characters. We talked about Butch.
You know who we haven't talked about? The Bonnie situation.
The Bonnie situation.
Or not the Bonnie situation. I mean the diner.
The diner.
We haven't talked about the
bookends.
Yeah, the bookends. The bookends of the movie. And how it, like, the movie ties in, kind of, like, begins and ends with the middle of the movie.
Yeah, which is fascinating, because I think when we were talking about it, where, Vince and Jules, there's the point where, Jules decides to take his path and Vince chooses his path, and that's where their paths diverge. Vince leads us to death, Jules leads to what we assume is life.
Mm-hmm.
He lives. And I'm like, this is the trial for that? This is the midpoint, this is the hump that they have to cross to, achieve whatever. And
do you think it's
super
cool?
fun.
Do you think it's cool that the beginning and the end of the movie are also the middle of the movie? How it's kind of like that perfect division of the three?
Yeah, I mean, to get a little pretentious, Jean-Luc Godard said a movie has a beginning, middle, and end, but not necessarily in that order. And Tarantino took that shit to heart because he really loved Godard.
He made the beginning, middle, and end of the movie the same scene.
Genius.
I mean, honestly, genius.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. Like, unironically, genius move.
Yeah, because, like, that diner sequence, we get a whole new context to it from the beginning and the end of the movie. After seeing everything in between, because at the beginning it's like, this is one of those, flashy openings where it's just like, okay, this is gonna be a crime movie, right? And at the end, it's a whole new context of what that robbery means and the gravity of that situation.
Here's something, like, my take on it. That scene is the reason why Quentin Tarantino made the whole thing about pulp, right? Where he has the quote, the dictionary definition about pulp at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's called Pulp Fiction. Is because the scene at the beginning of the movie in the diner, leading into the scene with Vincent and Jules in the apartment, is very, like, pulpy stories, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is called Pulp Fiction, where those old, kind of like dollar store crime novels, gangster novels, horror novels, weird science.
Where pulp comes from, they would have been like 5 cents.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they were like 10-cent shitty magazines that was like Conan the Barbarian was like pulp adventures.
Yeah, printed on unfinished paper.
Yeah.
And
these all kind of qualify as like pulp stories,
well,
right?
I think what happens is that the beginning of the movie is very pulpy, right? Where it's kind of like these non-connected short stories that aren't full, right?
Yeah.
Where they're not like of this like high quality where they have like, a nice beginning, middle, and end and everything. And then as the movie progresses, it becomes less and less pulpy and more complete.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of makes this transition from like the pulpiest pulp, where you have these kind of like non sequitur stories that are just kind of cool little things, like they don't mean much. And then at the very end, we end with the same scene, but in a not pulpy way, where the beginning scene, very short, sweet, little bit of action, they whip out the guns and whatnot. And at the end, they have this kind of like long, drawn out conversation about, coming to terms with, Jules' faith in the Lord and trying to be the shepherd. Mm. And like this whole sequence, it's kind of, it way longer than the original sequence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, another interesting thing about it being pulp, I can't remember who it was. I think it was like Raymond Chandler, one of the, like, some old pulp writer who said, if you ever come to a story point where you don't know where to go, just have somebody walk in with a gun. And I mean, how many times does that happen in this movie?
All the time.
All the time. And we get to this weird point, and then a guy bursts out of the bathroom and starts firing his gun.
Yes.
And it doesn't shoot him. It's a work of God. Or, Vincent's taking a dump, and then boom, pops in Butch with a fucking MAC-10 and blows him away.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of an interesting thing that this movie, even its title called Pulp Fiction, there's still a lot of pulp references, and it's not just a on the surface homage thing, right?
Yes.
And I really like that. I really like the diner scene too, because it does feel like there's so much going on there. And the beginning of it is like, oh yeah, this really pulpy opening that it's also really just, it's a basic cold open, right? Oh, this is the kind of story we're in. This story about this crime shit going on, about these petty criminals in yes. LA. And at the end, it's like, okay, now it's like the petty criminals and like the hard gangsters, and they're at this crossroads in their life, and he's like, I'm giving you my $1,500. You're not taking it from me. I'm giving it to you because I'm buying your life. That's what this is. I am buying your life right now. It's so good. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say.
No, that's a really good point because it kind of shows the crossroads between those. Even though we don't get to meet up with the robbers after that, I'm pretty sure he might have had a change of heart about the work he does.
Yeah. I think we've reached basically as much as we can talk about, right?
I think there's still some stuff we could talk about, but I think it would require a second watching.
Yeah.
We'll rewatch, kind of to refresh our memories on everything we've
gone
touched
through.
on.
So why don't we talk about this? So this is on the list. I believe it comes in at number 94 in the AFI Top 100 list. This one was a recent addition. It comes in at 94. It wasn't on there beforehand. So, do you think this is the Tarantino film that deserves to be on the list? Do you think it's at the right placement? Do you think there could be more Tarantino on here? Has he made better movies since?
I think saying that another Tarantino movie is better than this one, not sure if I'll be able to say that because I've not seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I know you have high praise for. Other people have high praise for.
Yeah.
There's another movie that he made somewhat recently. Django Unchained.
Oh, Django Unchained, yeah.
Django Unchained.
Oh, got a lot of controversy around that one.
But I've heard it was really good.
It's very good. I really like that movie. That movie's great. That one, Inglourious Basterds, is also fantastic.
I think Inglourious Basterds, although some of the acting in it is really good.
The tension in the opening sequence where it's Christoph Waltz.
One of the best opening sequences in a whole movie probably ever.
It's so good.
So good. But I think it kind of runs away with itself after that.
Yeah. I think it's a thing where Tarantino has troubles reeling himself in.
He really does. That's probably my main complaint about him, is that he doesn't reel himself in when I think he should.
Yeah.
But also that's how he gets some of his better work is, when he goes way overboard.
Kill Bill for
Kill
one.
Bill. But I don't really see Inglourious Basterds, maybe in a top 300, maybe it'd fit in there somewhere, but definitely not in the top 100 greatest American films of all time. Django Unchained, haven't seen it. I've heard really good things about it.
I really dig it. I do think, though, it's probably
not as good as Pulp Fiction. Close but no cigar.
Close but no cigar. I think that's the real question here is what do you think is Pulp Fiction the best Tarantino film? I'm in the opinion that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is on par.
On par, you say?
I think it's on par, but I am of the
vocal
minority.
Yeah, minority opinion.
Yeah.
Would you say that it would supplant it on this list?
No.
No?
No. I think Pulp Fiction is far too influential.
I see.
Far too influential. For one thing, it comes out in 94. It basically creates a crime genre or a crime subgenre within itself that gets repeated a bunch of times. Not in great quality.
What movies have really ripped Pulp Fiction that I would know of?
Oh, that you would know of? See, that's the problem. I can list off a bunch of them, but they're all these shitty B movies that came out in the early 2000s. That's kind of the problem.
I mean, I think the real influence that Pulp Fiction has is that it put Tarantino squarely on the map.
Yeah. I mean, Tarantino became the most successful of the 90s indie darlings because it was the early 90s indie boom, it's Richard Linklater, Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino, and he comes out with Reservoir Dogs. We have Slacker, we have Clerks, we have El Mariachi, and it's Tarantino out of those four is he's the biggest one.
Way more successful than the other person. Kevin Smith has kind of been on a downward spiral for years now.
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez, though a great director, he is very much okay just
leaving it be.
He likes making fun action movies and kids movies. He just likes doing his own thing. He doesn't care what people think about him. He made more money than he ever thought he would make. And Richard Linklater, he's making art house films. He made Boyhood. So I
have no idea what that movie is.
It's the story that he filmed over the course of 15 years with the same actors, and it follows this kid growing up.
I think I've heard of that movie actually. I think I saw you watch something about it.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, but that's what Richard Linklater is doing. He's a very art house kind of, or he's leaning more into the art of film than Tarantino, who's leaning into the whole thing of fucking.
He's making these big blockbusters.
Big blockbuster movies, yeah. So in financial success, he's probably the most successful out of all of them.
I mean, he's probably easily the most influential out of all of them. Well, maybe Kevin Smith.
It's the thing where Clerks' dialogue has infiltrated so much of like independent film. You can argue that Clerks is the origin story of like mumblecore, but granted, Slacker is probably closer because that's the origin story of Clerks. But whatever.
But basically, Quentin Tarantino is the biggest, still making big movies today. Could still be influential in the future. While I think Kevin Smith is like, while he had like this really big influence over these like mumblecore movies.
Yeah, and also it's like Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
Like he made really good films for a really long time, and then I think he got to the point where he got too much money and he got really
I think he just kind of got like an inflated ego about himself and just kind of spiraled from there.
My biggest critique of Kevin Smith is he should stop writing movies while he's high. That's basically my biggest critique of him. I think his movies he wrote when he was like sober were far better movies.
Well, I don't know anything about like
everything Cop Out after he was blasted for. Everything before was good. Everything before he was sober.
Yikes! I mean,
I think Pulp Fiction is on here just because the influence of it alone is super, super high. Do I think it's going to be on here? If they did a list...
If they redid
the list tomorrow, I think it still holds on. But if they did the list in another 10 years, I don't know if it's still on there.
I think it would still be on there. I mean, it's a really good movie. And the dialogue in it is so good.
Yeah.
I think it'd still be on there. Maybe it'd take a hit, go down a little bit. But I mean, there's not much wiggle room with going down a little bit on here. So I don't know. Maybe it could fall off. Maybe one of Quentin Tarantino's more recent movies would go on.
I actually remember this.
Because I think he is a big, influential director.
Well, here's the thing, because I did mess up. It's at 94 on the list right now, but it used to be at 95. It went up 1.
Up 1,
It went up 1.
Big moves. Big money moves.
Big money moves. It went up 1. So I think that's the thing. With that, I feel Pulp Fiction is probably right around where it should be. In like this lower 80s, 90s area, this is probably where it's gonna sit. I can't imagine this going much higher up the list if it did. Because I feel this movie is incredibly, like, influential. It's probably the best Tarantino film we got, or the most unique Tarantino film, and it's using a lot of it's using a lot of filmmaking things that are
it does have
really
unusual filmmaking elements to it. You know, it's out of order.
Yeah, it's a non-linear story. So
yeah, I can see its place on this list. I think, you know, it's at the right spot.
You think this is the first one we've hit that's at the right spot?
It's at the completely right position. Don't move it. It's fine where it is. Also, you know, we have the little thing.
Yeah.
It came out in 1994. It's at 94 on the list.
Oh, we love it.
Those little things, you know, or like the videos where people put like boxes and boxes and they slide neatly into each other. Oddly
satisfying memes. But yeah, so Pulp Fiction, yeah, I think probably about it. I think this movie is exactly where it needs to be. But yeah, so that was Pulp Fiction. So overall, good movie.
Good.
Great movie.
Way better than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. Oh, well,
it ain't the Ben-Hur.
It's no Ben-Hur.
It's no Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur is a great movie. It's great ass. But yeah, Pulp Fiction, really good.
All right, so yeah, Pulp Fiction.
Great.
Really good.
Really held up.
But next week.
Better than I thought it would be.
Which is awesome. I think that's a good thing.
Even though I've seen it before.
Watch these. I think going back to watch these, finding a movie that held up a lot better than you thought it would, it's great. But this next movie, I think this one is a movie you've never seen before. Number 93.
No, I've not seen before. I am looking forward to it. I've heard nothing but great things about it.
Yes, it is going to be The French Connection, 1971, directed by William Friedkin. This one is going to be our first one with Gene Hackman, and I cannot wait. I love The French Connection. It's a great movie. It is raw. It is gritty.
Have I seen anything from this movie before? Like maybe clips or something?
Maybe the chase sequence.
What does the chase sequence look like?
It's the one where Gene Hackman's driving through, like, he's chasing a train, right? And he's driving through the streets of, like, New York.
I think I've seen references to it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah.
What's the one where I know it's a totally different movie. I think it's a British movie too, where where he's like getting chased by the cops and he drives on top of the building and loses them up there.
Oh, I don't actually know that one.
You don't know that one?
I don't.
Man, I've seen you watch it, And I was like, I really wanted to know the name of the movie.
Don't worry, we'll probably get to it when we do the BFI.
Yeah.
So yeah, next week, French Connection. I cannot wait. It's going to be great, and I'm going to argue why The Exorcist should be the William Friedkin film on this list. But, you know.
Oh, he did both those movies?
Yes. I'll show you the William Friedkin IMDb after this, and it's going to be good.
Oh, I'm going to be like, wow. Really?
This motherfucker.
My best Owen Wilson impression. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But yes, if you want to hear our best Owen Wilson impressions, show up next week. You can find us on our YouTube channel In the Frame, where you can also find this podcast. You can find the Double Feature podcast. You can find the Film Club podcast and Too Obscure for TV. And you can find us on Instagram at the Film Odyssey podcast, and so on and so forth. We're the same thing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else. But yeah, Randy, any last words?
Good movie. A lot of things to read into.
Marcellus
Dialogue,
Wallace does
amazing.
not look like a bitch.
No, Marcellus Wallace is definitely looking like a bitch at the end of this movie.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Have a good night.